25, breaks a couple of tackles, and look at him go! He could go all the way! Touchdown!
Winning is not a sometimes, it's an always. Winning is a habit.
What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to episode 3 of Gut Check Podcast for this season. The NFL draft is in the books, and we're here to talk about it. I'm your host, Matt Williams. With me, as always, good friend and co-host Seth Floyd Hansen. How you feeling today, man?
I'm good. It's right after the draft is always a tough deal because like you come off this high, you're all excited about your team, and then you realize there's like nothing for the next 3 months, at least football wise, and nothing sports wise right now. The one thing that'll be interesting at least is, and I don't know, I think you're a nerd like me when it comes to this, but like I love when the NFL releases the schedule. Like it's fun to go through and look where you're going to be, like where you're going to be at the holidays or what's going on Thanksgiving, like things like that, big games to circle on your calendar. So this was the first year they're releasing it after the draft. They're releasing it in like a week or so. So that's like the one thing that we have left to look forward to until training camp, and hopefully training camp happens. So I'm kind of in that phase right now. I'm realizing the letdown of no football for a while.
Yeah, there's only so much you can look at the 7 rounds of the draft plus the free agents. You know, you can look at every player. I mean, I'm looking into like the undrafted free agency and what I can find on them. Are they going to be good? Are they going to make the team? Whatever, what other stories are out there. But you can only do that for so long, and then sooner or later, I can grade these players all I want. Everybody can break it down, but you got to see them on the field. It's going to be some time before that. So, yeah, a little bit of a letdown, but I think overall that draft was pretty fun. I think it was pretty cool to see it virtually. I think it went off without a hitch. There were definitely some complaints, maybe how ESPN was sort of taking advantage of some of these kids with their stories and stuff like that. I thought was a little extreme. I know I did say on the podcast, look into these kids and their stories and all of that stuff. I don't mean the trauma and the tragedy they've gone through. I just mean the hard work and the dedication they've put into the sport to get where they are. So I thought that was a little unnecessary with ESPN, but other than that, I thought it was a pretty cool draft. Yeah,
that part was weird. They've never done that before, and I think they realized that there was an opportunity for more people to be watching, the less hardcore fan, like your really casual fan, and especially if you have like more female viewers, which I'm sure they did. Those are the kind of stories that target that kind of audience because they're I don't know, but so that was kind of weird. And the virtual draft, like it was fine. It went off for what it was. Please don't ever do it again. Like nothing compares to it being live and in person, but obviously I'm grateful for it going off, and it was pretty smooth. Roger Goodell was losing his steam at the end there, just kicking back in his chair. I think for what it was, I mean, given the situation, the circumstance, like it went as good as you could have hoped for. So,
yeah, and I think it just shows. I mean, normally those teams have these huge war rooms, but maybe you don't need that. I mean, you have a coach and a GM in separate places. There's plenty of phone calls and teleconferences that can happen. Everybody has the information already. So, I think that worked out pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So a lot of stuff happened on the draft. It didn't have as many trades as they've had in the past. I think only 29 trades throughout this draft. But your team, San Francisco 49ers, one of those teams making a lot of trades.
Yep.
How do you feel about those trades? And then how do you feel your team did overall?
I mean, I always like when a team is trading. It generally makes me feel like what they're doing is intentional, like they have a plan versus like, let's just pick when our pick is up and just hope for the best, Yeah. So, and obviously we know not every team trades well. But I think the Niners traded just fine, given the circumstance they're in. So they traded back from 13 to 14, and they picked up a 4th round pick to move one spot, which was good. Like you're only moving one spot and you still get your guy. Trading up from 31 to 25 and sacrificing some picks, that was surprising, but it made sense. The reasoning behind it, which we can get into, but the biggest trade for sure was getting Trent Williams, which this whole thing was such a it was a story that was like so under wraps, and they kept it hush hush, which was good because it didn't tip their hand. But with the news of Joe Staley retiring, which we didn't get until after the Trent Williams trade, it just was crazy, and it could have been a lot worse for the Niners. It sounds like they knew going into the draft that Staley was going to retire. And so the fact that they didn't take a tackle at 13, the fact that they were willing to trade with the Buccaneers was, once you knew that they already knew, like that was pretty surprising. But I don't blame them for being all in on Trent Williams. He knows Kyle Shanahan. He came in the league with Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
They basically get him they basically got him for free if you really think about it, because they ended up trading Matt Breida to the Dolphins for a 5th round pick, and Matt Breida wasn't going to make an impact, and he should have. And if you ask me, Breida's like a running back 1. Dolphins got a steal, but when Shanahan's the way he runs his offense, he wasn't going to make an impact. So trading him for a 5th round, like, is not, you're not missing anything with him gone, really. And then if they do give up a 3rd rounder next year, but if they let Trent Williams walk next year, which I don't think they will, they'll figure out an extension. But if they do, everyone's talking about how they'll get a compensation pick for a 3rd rounder. And if that were the case, like, you got both your picks back for giving up very little.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the Trent Williams trade is a home run. What are your thoughts on it?
No, I think that one makes the most sense for all those reasons you hit on. They gave up Breida for a 5th round, so they got that pick right back pretty much immediately. And then, offensive tackle, offensive line was one of their needs going into the draft. It wasn't a top need, but they always want to bolster that line. So if you're not going to pick an offensive lineman early in the draft, go out and trade. I mean, Trent Williams is a top talent. He's a proven talent. He took, basically a whole year off, so he's a little fresh, some injury concerns, but he has all-pro talent, and that talent exists in the NFL. You don't know any of these tackles coming out of the draft are going to have that. You can project all you want, but you haven't seen any of them play in the NFL. You've seen Trent Williams play. Mm-hmm. So I think it absolutely makes sense. I mean, I guess it's good for the Redskins, too, to get rid of Trent Williams. Obviously, they would have loved to have him on the team, but they just ruined that whole relationship and everything. So looking back, I think the Redskins should have gotten rid of him earlier, so that they probably could have gotten something more from him besides just a 5th round pick. But it is what it is. I mean, you could have traded him for, someone from the Texans or, something like that earlier on last year, but they tried to make it work. It didn't work. So I think the 49ers absolutely got a steal with Trent Williams.
And the truth with Trent Williams, I'm arguing with my dad and some other people about it, but so the news came out that they were interested in Trent Williams, and that was before we knew about Staley. There'd been some rumors, but no one really bought into it. And John Lynch had said Staley hasn't said anything that makes us believe he's not coming back. But it was clear something was going on. And the truth is, I love Staley. Staley's my guy, but he's not Trent Williams. Mm-hmm. And Staley last year was not his best season. Part of that is he got injured. He broke his leg in the 2nd game, missed some time, came back. His first game back was against Seattle on Monday Night Football, where he played terrible. Clowney had his best game of the year, and it was against Staley. He played better going forward, but Trent Williams is an upgrade from Joe Staley. He really is. And the thing that worries me about Joe Staley retiring is not the talent, because we replaced him with Trent Williams, but he's the ultimate locker room guy. He's an energy giver that everyone loves. Everyone rallies around. When Joe is in the room, he is the 49ers. People get hyped. And so that's one concern I might have. How does the locker room, how does it change because he's not there anymore? But from a talent perspective, and he already has played in Shanahan's system, as long as Williams is healthy and he stays healthy, and you alluded to, he's probably fresher because his joints had a year off, things like that. It's a slam dunk. It's an upgrade for sure. He's younger than Joe Staley by 5 years. It's just a slam dunk if he can stay healthy and stay on the field.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to underplay a locker room personality too much, but at the same time, if you're just coming off being the NFC champion, I don't think there's a lot of instability or, it's one guy that's holding together that locker room. Like, you just
All
came
right.
off being the top of the world, right? You just missed out on the Super Bowl, like on a close, tough game. You guys are fine, right? I think
Right, right.
maybe you're more concerned, like Joe Thomas with the Browns, right? He was a staple there. He was a locker room guy, and that team was awful every time he was there. So maybe he created some stability. So I think, yeah, no shade or anything on Joe Staley, but I think removing him, you're probably not too worried.
There shouldn't be too big of a drop off. So overall, if you're including the Trent Williams trade, which I am because they traded
Yeah.
a draft picks for it, like I love their draft. Now I will say this: everyone, or at least mostly everybody, one of two things happens to you if you're a fan of your team. You either love the draft pick right away and you get all pumped off their draft, or you hate the draft pick for 10 minutes and then you talk yourself into how it was the right thing and your team's going forward, right? Everyone is super optimistic. Well, I was the latter when this first happened because you still had Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb on the board. And for the 10 minutes that the Niners were on the clock, I had like stars in my eyes that we were going to get CeeDee Lamb or whoever. And so when they went Javon Kinlaw, like if there'd been a camera on me, like verbally out loud, I'm there with my wife. I've got my in-laws are in the room watching, and I'm yelling no. Like I was so disappointed when the came out with Kinlaw. But after the first round was over, like, and hearing some of the things Lynch and Shanahan had said, like it made a lot of sense. Shanahan came out and he said, he was like, you want to know what the easiest time in my career of calling offense was? And he said, no, it wasn't in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. It was weeks 1 through 8 last year when everybody on the defense was healthy. He was like, it is so easy to scheme and call an offense when your defense dominates. So when Javon Kinlaw was still on the board, which we weren't confident he would still be on the board at 14, like it was a no-brainer that's the guy you have to go with because we just traded DeForest Buckner. Now I like Kinlaw a lot, and here's how I view this with DeForest Buckner and Kinlaw is I think Buckner coming out of college had a higher floor. I think he'd more proven. He had started for 3 or 4 years, technically sound, just a giant of a man, like 6'9" or 6'8", whatever he was. And just was like as close as to a can't miss as you can get. Now, DeForest Buckner never climbed into that like defensive player of the year type of conversation. He just was stable. And his thing is he played more snaps than anybody, never missed time, played like 800 snaps on defense last year. Kinlaw does not have as high of a floor as Buckner, but he could have a higher ceiling. He's kind of that prospect that is explosive. He's like one of the biggest factors of why South Carolina beat Georgia last year was he just manhandled that Georgia offensive line. If he can stay healthy, he really has just like the one main year of production. But I think it was a real good pick. And their winning formula, they got to the Super Bowl last year is because they invest so much in the defensive line. So why would you get away from that? Why would you not replicate what you've been doing? And so that's I over time, after the 10 minutes of being so disappointed, like it made a bunch of sense to me. So
yeah. So he was graded, Kinlaw he was graded at 13th overall. You get him at 14th, so a little bit of value there. But like you said, there were some higher valued targets that were still on the board, like CeeDee Lamb, 6 overall, Jerry Jeudy, who went right after that at 15. But I think it makes sense. It's a little odd. Maybe, you trade DeForest Buckner, defensive lineman, and then with that pick, you get another defensive lineman. But I see your points. I mean, you know what you have in Buckner. If you can flip him for a pick and maybe Kinlaw can become even better and just stabilize that defense, it makes sense. Control the line of scrimmage on both sides. I think that's a winning formula, and I think that's what Shanahan and the 49ers are buying into. It got him to the NFC Championship and to the Super Bowl, so we'll see if that works. The pick at 25, they needed to go wide receiver. For me, I think it's a little bit of a stretch getting him. Again, everybody just grades them differently. You like your guys that you like. So to trade up from 31 to 25, it does make sense because you think a lot of teams could go wide receiver ahead of you, like the Packers that we'll talk about. The Seahawks could have done it. Ravens, any of these teams that were ahead of you could have gone wide receiver. So the trade up, I don't necessarily have too much of an issue with, but I think getting that wide receiver right there might have been a little stretch. But again, if you like the guy, make the move to go get him. You don't want to miss out on your guy.
Sure. So and I was like, that one was, I mean, not a head scratcher. You already had 5 receivers off the board at that time, so it wasn't. Coach Shanahan's explanation that he gave after the draft made me feel better. He said, and I don't know if I believe it 100%, because he was saying, look, I would have taken this dude at 13. He was my number 1 receiver on the board.
Yeah.
But he did mention that it was close to a toss up between him and CeeDee Lamb. My guess is he probably liked Lamb more than this guy. But you can see why he likes this guy. And for those who don't remember, it's Brandon Ayuk, receiver out of Arizona State. The reason the MO for 49ers players is your ability, at least for receivers, tight ends and receivers, is your ability to run with the ball after the catch. And no one averaged more than Brandon Ayuk. He was averaging 10.9 yards after catch. After he caught the ball, he was extending another 10 yards. And so I believe that Shanahan loves this guy. I don't think he was BSing anybody there. I do think that, so if he had come out and he had said, look, receivers were off the board, we were scared of losing this next guy that was on our board, we felt like we had to do it, that kind of explanation wouldn't have done it for me. I would have felt like it was a reach, but he believes in this guy.
Yeah.
And they went to the Super Bowl last year, so I don't know. They hit on Deebo Samuel last year, it looks real promising. And so Brandon Ayuk, if it's his guy, I trust that he knows what he's going to do. He's probably already got things schemed up for him. My one thing about Brandon Ayuk is I don't know if I see him being a true number 1,
mm-hmm.
which is fine if you go to a system like Shanahan's, because that's just not how Shanahan operates. He doesn't ever line guys up. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but only in the rarest of circumstances does he line guys up and just call a play, and his play, he's relying on the guy just being able to beat the guy in front of him and the quarterback make the throw. Every play is set up off of another play, which helps your receivers because it's so much off of play action. It's so much off of other pass plays that look one way, and then the receiver, the guy bites and you're wide open. That's mostly what his thing is. So I think the Niners can get away without having a true number 1. And I could be wrong. He really could become a true number 1, but he felt so much like Deebo Samuel. And I don't think Deebo's a number 1. And it just felt like their game is really similar. But hey, when you run the ball as well as the Niners do, plus you have George Kittle, he's going to be open. And so I like the pick from that standpoint. And they're in win now mode. You don't go into the draft with 6 picks, none in the middle rounds, and then trade those picks away if you're not in win now mode, which they are. So I like it from that standpoint. Really quick, and then we can move on. I like the Niners draft because of I generally judge a draft based on how many of these guys are projected to play right away. I don't get into the later round, this guy could develop, I'm going to give you a great grade because this guy could eventually develop into something great. He might, I don't know. But what can you control? You drafted guys that are going to make an immediate impact. You evaluated them. You looked at your team. You said, look, we're going to get this guy. He's going to make an impact. The Niners got 4 guys in this draft who are going to make an impact. So Kinlaw's going to play. He very well could start. I'd be shocked if he wasn't a starter by week 6 to 8. Somewhere in there, he's going to be starting. Brandon Ayuk, obviously going to make an immediate impact. Receivers can do that, especially if you have an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing. Trent Williams, I'm including in the draft, gave him up, got him for some draft picks. Obviously, going to start, going to play as long as he's healthy. The 4th guy is who they took, the Georgia tight end, Werner, who is not a pass catcher at all, but they lost Levine Toilolo, who was one of their blocking tight ends. And with how much the Niners run the ball, they had to have a blocking tight end. Their backup tight end has been Ross Dwelley, but he kind of comes in for Kittle as a pass blocker. He's not, or as a receiving tight end. He's more of an athlete. He's not a blocker. He's not like Kittle. You can't really count on him to block. So they pick up Warner, who has like 40 receptions in his career at Georgia. He had like 7 catches last year. Like not but if you watch some of the 49ers Twitter out there was posting clips of him blocking and just like a wrecking ball when he wants to block. And it's a good pick. Now he's not going to start, but for how much they get into these sets with 2 tight ends, like this dude I imagine is going to see 10 to 15 snaps a game based on what we do. And to me, he's going to contribute. So I'm not saying they had the best draft. I just think they addressed the needs that were there. They got guys that are going to contribute right away, and I'm happy with it overall. If they hadn't traded for Trent Williams, I would be more kind of meh about the whole thing. But the Trent Williams trade makes this whole thing like a very solid upper echelon draft.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because you don't have a lot of picks going into it. You don't have a lot of needs either because you are the best team in the NFC coming off of last year. So it kind of makes sense. It's hard not to be biased. You know, you can look at teams who had 15 draft picks, and it's easier to give them a higher grade because they just got so many players that some of them aren't going to pan out. So when you have less draft picks, you have to be creative. And I think that's absolutely what the 49ers did in going after Trent Williams, in moving Breida to get a pick back. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good. Yeah, I'm with you. Probably like a B+ range.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's fair. And again, these coaches in San Francisco, they know what they're doing. So they'll turn the talent into some good product on the field. So I think you should be excited about it.
Sure. And so I was spacing on his first name. So it's Charlie Warner out of Georgia was that tight end. And they got him in the 6th round. And if you get a guy in the 6th round who's going to play, like even if he doesn't start, like he's going to play 30% of the offensive snaps this year. And you just ask him to do one thing, just block. And guess what? George Kittle is the guy in front of you. He can teach you a lot and help you become an even better blocker. So I thought it was good. And then just the other 2 picks, Colton McKivitz, West Virginia tackle, like he was co-offensive lineman of the year in the Big 12. So like he's a guy you can kind of be excited about if you're a 49er fan because he's a guy that could be real good. And then Jawan Jennings, Tennessee wide receiver, big guy, not very fast, but every time you watch him catch the ball, like he's just dragging defenders. Again, like run after the catch. So like none of these picks felt like throwaways. And to be fair, like the Niners have had picks in the past with Shanahan and Lynch that were kind of head scratchers. Like even last year when they took Mitch Wishnowsky, the punter, like we talked about that, and there was the scout.
Good story.
Good story, but still kind of was like, man, I don't know. You know what I mean? That none of these picks felt like that. It just felt like they had 5 picks, and they just kind of got value where they were, and so I'm overall pretty happy with it.
Yeah. So Dallas Cowboys coming into their draft, pick number 17, first and foremost. A lot of people thinking, myself included, going defense there, go cornerback, go safety. They need some help in the defensive backfield after losing Byron Jones, losing Jeff Heath. Even though they picked up HaHa Clinton-Dix, he's not a long-term solution, so you need somebody right there who can play and make an impact. I had them going C.J. Henderson, which he went off the board a lot sooner than I even thought. Even a little conservatively. I didn't think he'd go 9 to the Jaguars, but that's a solid pick. He's obviously a high talented guy. So CeeDee Lamb falling all the way to 17th, where Pro Football Focus had him 6th overall. ESPN has him as the 10th overall person in the draft. The Cowboys are known for just going best player available on their board and not trying to reach to fill what they think is a need. Wide receiver 3 was absolutely a need after they lost Randall Cobb to free agency. So it makes sense here. You can sort of project down the line. What are you going to do if you have really 3 number 1 receivers with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb? Any one of those guys could probably be a number 1. So what are you going to do? But that's a future problem. And that's a problem of riches. So yeah, absolutely take the best guy on the board. The Cowboys said themselves they had him number 6 on their board as well. So if you get the number 6 overall player at 17, you know that's a steal. And then in our mock, I had Trevon Diggs in the first round as well, the cornerback out of Alabama. I don't think you had him coming off your board, but he's certainly a high-rated prospect regardless, number 31 on Pro Football Focus. So to get him in the second round at number 19 is another steal. And then lastly, I'll just stop at their third round pick, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Gallimore. He was the 51 rated prospect, and they got him at, I believe it was 82 overall. So that's 3 picks in the top 51 of the big board. You're getting value for all of those picks. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the Cowboys. They really reached on maybe 2 of their picks out of the 7 that they had. And you're going to have some immediate big-time playmakers right there. So, yeah, I'm loving the Cowboys pick right now. I really do hope that their defensive backs that they picked will develop and be long-term starters, because you lost Byron Jones to free agency, but then Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie, who your other cornerbacks are, they're on their last year of their contracts as well. So you're going to have a lot of uncertainty in that backfield. You need these guys to come in and play and produce pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to do our winners and losers later in the draft, and I didn't put the Cowboys in as a winner just because I knew we were going to talk about them, but they for sure are a winner in this draft. Like you said, I mean, CeeDee Lamb just fell into the lap. How lucky is Cowboy Nation and like that organization? Because Jerry Jones was just going to make picks on his own by himself on his yacht. He said, "No one's here."
That's okay. That's been a little bit misrepresentation there.
Probably exaggerated, but lucky for you guys, you didn't. Yeah. Lucky for you guys, you didn't have to find out if that theory that everyone was reporting is true, because you just had CeeDee Lamb fall in your laps, like basically a can't miss. And it's one of those picks that if it fails for some reason, CeeDee Lamb just fooled everybody and he's not really that good. Like, no one's going to blame Jerry Jones for that. And if you do, you're stupid, because everyone had him super high. So an automatic, like, number 2, right? You're at least this year, you're going to have Cooper be your number 1, and he steps in as like the next best receiver. But also with Trayvon Diggs, given your defensive back situation, like he's going to play. Like, I'd be surprised if he doesn't start. He's that talented, comes from Alabama. We know how great, like, the track record of Alabama defenders are in the NFL. And just a slam dunk. The other pick that I loved for you guys was Bradley Anae, the defensive end from Utah. Yeah. And I don't know how much of an impact he'll make early, but just his story, like, he's just the kind of guy you want on your football team. Obviously I'm a little bit of a homer. I have those LDS Mormon ties. Like, his whole family, he's got like 4 relatives that played BYU football. His sister plays volleyball at Utah. He has another sister that throws shot put at BYU. Like, comes from a good line of athletes. Got a lot of good genetics there, but you watch his film and he's fun to watch. He really is. Yeah. And Utah, not a bad program. Like, I know it was in the Pac-12, but they always have a stingy defense. They're always that team that has a great defense and then tries to piece together a patchwork offense. But I thought in the 5th round, like, a great pick for them. And the Cowboys are going to be good, man. I mean, Dak has shown that he's like a capable quarterback. I think he's shown what he is. So it's not really a Dak thing. It's more of a Cowboys thing. Like, you guys have no excuse to not produce on offense. You just don't. And I like Mike McCarthy. Like, a lot of Cowboys fans didn't like that hire because he's like a retread. But look at some of these like young and upcoming offensive coordinators that everyone wants you to have. Like, I don't know. I think with a roster like this, you just need a coach who knows what he's doing. Like, hey, let's do these things that I know are successful. Let's just get them instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. So I think things are looking real good for Cowboys this year.
Yeah, with the McCarthy hire, we'll probably touch on that a lot more when we do our like NFC, AFC East predictions and everything. But yeah, it makes sense because you have the talent there. You're not trying to rebuild or you're not trying to rebrand. You're just trying to do the little things right. I think that was Jason Garrett's biggest flaw, is that he didn't have his special teams squared away. There were too many penalties, right? You can't put all that on a coach, but ultimately it is his responsibility. So get a guy who has some respect in the league. He has, he has the experience where he's not trying to, like you said, reinvent the wheel. So yeah, all in all, I love the Cowboys picks. Getting the quarterback out of James Madison in the 7th round was probably a little bit of a reach, where I think they could have gone maybe tight end there. I think I would have liked to see Thaddeus Moss go in the 7th round there.
Yeah.
He later got picked up as an undrafted free agent by Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So to get a Division I AA quarterback, who James Madison was a good team. They lost in the championship last year, but he wasn't lighting up the league necessarily. I kind of dug into his stats a little bit. They were a running team first and foremost. So he wasn't, just throwing the ball a lot, which, yeah, it fits in the Cowboy system, but you probably could have got him undrafted free agent as well. I do love the center guard pickup. I haven't looked up how to pronounce his last name perfectly yet, but it's Tyler Biadasz, right?
Yeah,
so
that
he
was
was
right.
the guard, the center out of Wisconsin. Travis Frederick just retired, a former center out of Wisconsin. So this is a good value pick too. They got him. He was ranked like 80th overall, and they got him late in the 4th round. He hurt his own stock by going back a year in college, playing his senior year, had some injuries and stuff like that. But he's been graded as a top 3 center in the country every year that he's been a starter. So I think right away it just adds some depth, takes some pressure off of Joe Looney, who's going to replace at center. Connor McGovern, who's coming off an injury, could play guard or center. And then Connor Williams, same. So they have now like 4 pieces that they can move through 3 spots, which I think is pretty special.
So Matt, in like 10 or 15 seconds, I'm just curious, now that free agency and the draft is over, what's your biggest concern for the Cowboys going into the season? This is pre-training camp, before we've seen any of this, but what's your biggest concern as of today?
The concern is still the defense in the defensive backfield. I don't know what HaHa Clinton-Dix is going to do in the backfield still. He's been known to kind of be all over the field and not in his right spots. I don't know that Awuzie, Wood, Lewis, those guys are going to step up and be true corner ones. So it's always a little bit of a concern on defense. And then the biggest thing, really, you get a new coach. What is the team going to be like? We can talk about how McCarthy has experience and he's a good coach, but it's still the first year with a new coach. You don't necessarily have a lot of time to be rebuilding and figuring it all out. And then if you don't have OTAs, if you don't have training camp, if you don't have those extra practices with a brand new coach and a system, that could be pretty difficult to overcome. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I'll say real quick in my 10, 15 seconds for the Niners, the biggest thing I'm worried about is stopping the run, which I don't think a lot of people think about because the Niners defense was so good last year, but they struggled to stop the run all season. And part of the reason it didn't show up as much is because they were leading in so many games. Mm-hmm. The teams would start airing it out, which is their strength. But we traded DeForest Buckner, who was just a mountain of a man, and we still struggled to stop the run when he was there. So now you've got Kinlaw, who great upside but he's going to be a rookie. And so that's the thing I'd be worried about. If you go back and you watched the 49ers when they lost to Seattle in that Monday night game, Seattle did 2 things great. They ran the ball and they got the ball out of Russ's hands in less than 2 seconds. And that's how you beat a team like this with such a great defensive line. So that's what I'm most anxious for and kind of watching for as we get closer to training camp and things like that.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see. I mean, the NFC has always been such a toss-up year in and year out. It's a new team kind of fighting for the top every time. So, and I think a lot of the teams that already were at the top got better. Yeah. So it's going to be a battle for that. So we've talked about the teams we like the most, the Cowboys and the 49ers, but we want to hit on the winners and the losers of this draft overall. So let's start with the winners. I think we'd first say both the 49ers and the Cowboys were winners here for all the reasons we've just talked about. But there probably were some other bigger winners. So who would you say is your overall winner of the draft here?
It was hard because you could have gone a bunch of different ways. And I kind of was trying to go away that teams weren't talking about as much, or analysts weren't. But you've got like your Ravens did well, but they always draft well. Yeah. The Cardinals had a pretty good draft. They had some good value with Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones coming out of Houston, the tackle. But my first winner for this, I went with the Indianapolis Colts. Again, I'm evaluating based off guys that are going to impact right away. And I'm including DeForest Buckner because they trade him for the 13th overall pick. Essentially, that's how you got to look at it. With our 13th overall pick, we took DeForest Buckner. A great player who's going to be a Pro Bowler. He's not ever going to be, unless he does something, but he's been in the league now for 4 or 5 years. Like, unless something crazy happens, he's never going to reach like Aaron Donald status, but you're going to get a guy that you don't have to worry about as far as injury concerns. He's just out there. He's just a staple. He doesn't come off the field. He plays more than anybody. And he just does his job. A great pickup for that defensive line. The one downside is you had to pay him. But for their situation, their salary cap situation, they felt like it was worth it. And as a 49er fan, it was hard to see DeForest Buckner go, and the Colts got a great one. Then in their next 2 picks, okay, both in the second round, they end up with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, guys who I had in my first round. I know Jonathan Taylor in the first round might have been a reach just given the value of the position, but Jonathan Taylor, who's a guy that no position transitions easier to the NFL than a running back. That's just kind of the track record. Like, if you are a good running back in college, for the most part, unless you're Trent Richardson, like, you are going to be good in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor has proven it. He's proven that he can tote the rock. He does have a bit of a fumbling problem, but I think that's something that you can fix. Clearly they're not all in on Marlon Mack. I don't know what his contract status is. Maybe he's only got a year left on his deal, and so they want for the future. But all I know is Jonathan Taylor runs hard. If he doesn't fumble the ball, you're going to get – every time he touches the ball, he's going to give you positive yardage. And that stabilizes a team that hasn't ever been known for their running attack. And then Michael Pittman, who I do think should have gone in the first round. I really do. He's a big body. He's going to be a big body receiver. And he has the production to match. He had 101 catches last year at USC. He's not a burner, but probably faster than most people think. He has a 36-inch vert, so he's got some explosion in his hips. And those are guys that are just plug and play. Buckner's going to play day one. Jonathan Taylor, by the end of the season, is going to come out with the starting unit. But if not, he's at least going to split carries, and you're going to see what he's made of. And then you have T.Y. Hilton, and now you got Michael Pittman to go with Phillip Rivers, who you've just signed in free agency. Now, I don't know what Phil has left. Phil made some bad decisions last year. Threw a lot of interception. And it's interesting because when you throw an interception, it's either a bad decision or a bad ball. And I think a lot of what Phillip Rivers in his head is like 10 years younger than what he really is. So he sees guys at throws he used to make 10 years ago, like he can't fit it in that window anymore. He doesn't have the arm strength. And I think that's a lot of what happened last year with the Chargers. Guys were open, but he's just slower. His arm isn't as strong. And so if he can make that adjustment and be a little more conservative, like the Colts are doing some good things. They really do. They really are. I think Phillip Rivers is an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. That's just what I think he's going to be an upgrade over him. And so sorry I took up so much time, but I like what the Colts did in the draft this year.
Yeah, so I think the Colts are winners for basically every reason you said. The concern I have is what are they going to do with their quarterbacks? Maybe Phillip Rivers is much better of an upgrade. Maybe he's not, but you're still only going to have him for 1 or 2 years at best, right? He's 38 years old. You drafted Jacob Eason, so you have 3 quarterbacks there that are potentially starters, either starters now or you have them to be a starter in the future. So you can't keep all 3 of those on your roster. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So you got to move one of those. Most likely you're going to move Brissett then. So hopefully you can flip them for a pretty good pick. I think they need to do that. And then keep developing Eason. A lot of talk the Patriots could get Jacoby Brissett back.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, as someone who's not a Patriots fan, like, I don't want to see that because that just makes too much sense. And for the Patriots to just trade him off, get some picks, and then pick him back up for probably even cheaper than what they got rid of him for, and that makes their team immediately better, it would be pretty frustrating. But yeah, Colts are winners. I won't talk about them as winners. I will talk about one of the teams you did highlight out of your own division, the Arizona Cardinals. I like what they're doing. A lot of people wanted them to go offensive tackle right away in their first round. But with Isaiah Simmons sitting on the board, a top 4 prospect. That's just another case of going after best player available, and that's absolutely what they did. And then they were still able to get their tackle later on with Josh Jones out of Houston. Huge value there. He was like 14th overall with Pro Football Focus, and you get him in the 3rd round. Just absolutely crazy. Not part of the draft per se, but just talking about what the Cardinals are doing with being able to get rid of David Johnson and his contract and then pick up DeAndre Hopkins from the Texans and still flip or trade 4th round picks for that is just crazy. So I like what the Cardinals are doing. Cliff Kingsbury in his evil lair that they showed during the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just sitting by himself, chilling. I think they got some good picks, even getting Rashad Lawrence, the defensive tackle at LSU. I think their picks make a lot of sense. They're building around Kyler Murray. They're getting some help. They still need athletes and talent on defense because the NFC West is not getting any easier to win in, with the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Rams always up there competing. So I think they're going to be better. I think the NFC West is, again, moving towards the top as one of the toughest divisions. And we'll just see, can Kyler Murray take that next step with Cliff Kingsbury, with Larry Fitzgerald, with Kenyon Drake, with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, so much talent on that team, at least on the offensive side of the ball. If they can keep them up and Kyler Murray can take the next step up, I think there's some winners in this draft.
Yeah, I almost went Cardinals, mostly because I loved their 2nd round pick. And I like Isaiah Simmons. My one thought is, you've seen guys in previous years that are jack of all trades, master of none type of deal. And he could be an amazing safety. He could be an amazing linebacker. I don't know. If the Cardinals don't have a real plan for him, like then he could just be mediocre. You know what I mean? I don't think he's going to be a bust. It's not like he's not going to play. He's going to play. But I'm a homer. We play the Cardinals twice every year. And there were like Cardinal fans on Twitter trying to say like we got the Niners numbers now because we can shut down George Kittle. And I was like, because of Isaiah Simmons. And it was like, all right, like let's pump the brakes a little bit. So anyway, but I obviously a great draft. And then you have to include DeAndre Hopkins in that whole deal, because you got him for some picks. And anyway, we know how good he is. My second winner, I'll be quick, but I went with the Vikings. Yeah. They did some really good things. Real solid draft. They were able to trade back in the 1st round and pick up some more picks, and get a starter at the same time. Their first first round pick, Justin Jefferson, who was like kind of my guy in this draft. I probably had him. I for sure would have put him in the top 3 of the receivers, and probably like my 2nd favorite receiver. He just reminds me so much of Odell Beckham. Comes from LSU, has a good track record of receivers putting into the NFL. I just loved him, dude. He just produced. He came up in big spots, and they got him as the 5th receiver off the board, which was crazy to me. And I was hoping the Niners were going to trade back to where the Vikings with Justin Jefferson. I just thought that was a great pick. He just kind of fell into their laps and was great. And then getting Jeff Gladney out of TCU, I think this is a guy who could play right away. A lot of people think he's going to play more in the slot. That's fine. Like the slot guy is just as important to me as the outside guy. Like you look at like Tyreek Hill is going to line up in the slot like 80% of the time. And so you need a guy that can cover. So I thought what they did was really good. They made the most of trading Stephon Diggs. I like what the Vikings are doing. The only thing I don't like about the Vikings is their quarterback. So we'll see how that all comes together for them. But I think they did some really good things.
Yeah, solid draft for sure. And it's hard to fault them because they had so many draft picks too. So it looks like they're going to get a lot of talent out of this draft. My next winners. So I agree with the Vikings pick, but I do want to go with a different team here. I'm going to go with the New York Jets as winners here because similar to the Arizona Cardinals, they have the quarterback that they think is they need to build around. They're going to get some talent around him and protect him. So they start with Mekhi Becton, the tackle out of Louisville. A lot of people had him really high in the first round. It makes sense. He's like 6'7". He's a giant human. He's a little bit raw, which you don't like to see in the first round. But at that size and athleticism, I think he's going to fit in and he's going to play really well. He was number 2 tackle off ESPN's board, overall 12. So the value there makes sense. And then getting Mims out of Baylor. I know you had him in the first round, I believe. He's a talented receiver. Get some help for him. And then in the third round, they get Ashton Davis, the safety out of Cal, who I had in the first round there. So that's 3 pretty much first round talent picks in your first 3 picks. So I think the Jets are hitting on all of theirs. The problem always with the Jets is, can you coach them and can you develop them? Because it looks like they've been pretty good at drafting. You just need to be able to develop them, have the system in place. I don't know if Adam Gase is necessarily the guy. I mean, he's crazy enough. He could be. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if Sam Darnold's the guy per se, but you have him there. You're getting the weapons. You're doing everything right to try to help out. So with Ashton Davis and Jamal Adams in the defensive backfield there, you should shore up that defense a little bit. And then towards the end, I will just say LaMichael Pirine, the running back out of Florida. That's a talented guy. I mean, he put up some big numbers in the SEC. To get him in the 4th round to help out Le'Veon Bell and just some more weapons for Sam Darnold. I think it makes sense, and I think the Jets are doing pretty good things with this draft.
Yeah, I think it's good. I like that the Jets, who are a franchise that needs some stability, they need to, like, they've just been bad. And so generally to fix some of those problems, if you're a bad team, like my guess is you're not very good along the line, either offense or defense. So I'm glad the Jets didn't do the sexy thing and take like a receiver first pick when you had more press. Because like if you have a need along the line, like you have to go that route. You just have to like prove it. NFL history, football history shows like if you can't do anything on the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter how good your skill guys are. Yeah. So I thought that was real good. So I'm a fan of your winner.
So who are some of the losers from your draft here? We'll try to do these a little quicker.
So this isn't my official loser, but I got to hit on them real quick. Is the Raiders. Yeah. They're not a loser because like some of the guys they picked could be really good. And I like some of their later round picks. The guy from Kentucky, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife. He's pretty good, but man, the most Raider thing you could do was they did it twice in the first round.
Yeah.
They taken Henry Ruggs first before anybody because he's fast. Now I like Ruggs. I really do. And in taking him at 12 isn't like crazy. It just like my guess because of the Raiders, my guess is 31 other teams, if they'd been in that spot, would have taken one of the other 2 guys first.
Yeah.
My problem with this pick is like a couple things. One, history shows when you draft a receiver who's everyone's raving about just like his speed, like that's his thing. And you're not talking about how well-rounded he is. Plus he's really fast. Like speed is kind of Ruggs' thing. Like they just have the highest bust potential of anybody, right? Ruggs to me, out of all the guys, at least out of those top 3, top 4, if you're going to include Justin Jefferson, like he just has the least likely chance to become a number 1 to me. Like I just don't see him as a number 1. He looks like a Deshaun Jackson kind of guy to me. And he went to a team that doesn't have a number 1 receiver. So they're kind of asking him, like I would have loved to have seen him go where Judy went with the Broncos because they have Cortland Sutton, or the Cowboys where they already have Amari Cooper. And like I don't know if he can be the number 1 guy. Plus Derek Carr, like the jury's out on Derek Carr. Like no one knows if he's the guy. Like no one knows if he really is a franchise quarterback. And so it just feels like Ruggs went to a situation that wasn't the best, but I think he's a great player and I think he should have been a first rounder. So I don't even think they reached. It just was the Raider thing to do.
Yeah.
And then they've taken Arnett at 19, like who I can't knock it too hard because he's going to be a player. Like he's going to be a starter in the league, but like you for sure could have got this guy in the second round. It felt like I don't think there was any debate that he was going to be around in the second round, but I don't know. Mayak just doesn't care about that. But my problem is, Mayak, you did this last year. You took Clelin Ferrell at number 4 overall. How many sacks? He had 1 sack for every pick he was. He had 4.5 sacks, dude. You could have had Josh Allen, who had 10.5 sacks. Josh Allen had more sacks than Nick Bosa. Now, I don't think he affected the game as much as Nick Bosa did, but he had 10.5 sacks. And you took Clelin Ferrell over him. So, like, Mayak's track record for that is just kind of weird to me that you would do that. I don't know. I think he's going to start, and guess what? You took him at 19. If he's a starter and he's like a solid B player in the league, like no one's ever going to knock you super hard, but you could have taken him in the second round and he still would have been a solid B player, and you could have got someone else at 19.
Yeah.
Those are just funny things. I still like what the Raiders are doing. They've got some weapons. They drafted some guys. It was kind of weird. They went receiver first round and then they took more receivers later. Like it's a position of need, but I don't know. That's just how I see it. I officially not a loser. Sorry, you just said we need to go quicker. They weren't even like one of my losers, but I didn't feel like we could go through without talking about them. Do you want to comment on them before I get to my losers?
No, because you pretty much covered everything. But man, Mike Mayock, he must be hired by Clemson because he's just recruiting Clemson players. Like that's all it is.
He's just a Clemson guy, I guess. So I think our first loser. I think we have the same first loser.
Yeah.
Dude, it's got to be Green Bay. Like, here's my deal. Like, Jordan Love could be good. He's certainly a project. And so he went to the right spot as far as someone's playing in front of him, a really good quarterback's in front of him. He's probably going to go to a system that if Matt LaFleur can ever actually implement the system the way he wants, which he wants to look like the 49ers, he's a Shanahan disciple. Like, then I think Jordan Love could flourish in that. The problem is you were 13-3 last year. Like, are you just moving on from Aaron Rodgers? Like why wouldn't you, in a window, you went 13-3. Now, granted, you probably weren't a real 13-3 team. No one really thinks you were that good, but you still were in the NFC Championship game. Like, are you just not all in on Rodgers? Like, I don't understand it. The other thing is Rodgers is not like an easygoing guy. He's not going to just be like, oh, it's chill, guys. I get it. This is the business. He's going to be like, no, screw you guys. Like, this is my career. I only have a few good years left, and you're not even giving me any help. We're on the verge of being in the Super Bowl, and you're not giving me any help. Then in the second round, you take a guy who I like a lot, who's a running back who produced a lot at Boston College. But guess what? Like, he's not your starter. You have Aaron Jones, who's really good. You have Jamal Williams, who's very capable. Now, he'll probably fight with Jamal Williams for some carries, but certainly not a need. And then your third round pick, you take a guy who's going to be a fullback. Like, that's what they've said is like, we're going to transition him from tight end to fullback, which is an important piece, but not the most important piece that you needed. I don't know what they're doing. This is going to go NBA on everybody. And what I mean is, I think Aaron Rodgers in a year, if you come to halfway point of the season and you're 500 and you're behind the Vikings in the North, like, you're going to hear Rodgers being like, I'm over it. I want out. Like, trade me because I want out. Like, they did. I just hated what they did. I just hated their strategy. Rodgers probably, he's old. He probably has 3 years as probably the floor. Like, he's probably got 3 years left in him, and then he'll probably try to stretch it out longer than that. The Jordan Love pick, I get it. You're planning for the future, but this felt like it could have happened in a year. Like, why didn't you try and build for this next coming year? You're still in a window, and then draft a guy next year, or even the year after that. But they did it this early when Rodgers, like, he's probably not as good as he was in his prime, but he's still, I would say, a top 5 guy in the league, for sure a top 10 guy in the league. Hated it.
Yeah, so I won't belabor the point too much because I agree with everything you said. What I'll say quickly, though, is we liked the Eagles picking Jalen Hurts in the second round, or at least I did, right? So I thought that made a little bit more sense because Carson Wentz has been injured. He's played like 2 series in the playoffs every time you get there. You're a little more of a 500 team. Jalen Hurts can play right away with Carson Wentz. You can be creative if you want to and do kind of a Drew Brees, Taysom Hill sort of thing with those 2 guys. And I think that makes a little bit more sense. When you have Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, you're coming off a 13-3 season. you're not going to play both of those guys together. You're getting your quarterback of the future while not taking advantage of the window that you're in right now. So, yeah. So the reason I just want to bring that up is because I think it's okay to sort of plan for your future with the quarterback. One of the most valuable positions in the NFL is your backup quarterback. I mean, we see that every year. If your starter goes down, if you have a capable backup, you can keep producing and being productive. But yeah, this just screams, I'm done with Rodgers. I need to move on. I didn't like what the general manager said either. He just said, we kind of liked where he was on the board and he was available, and we didn't really see anybody else available to go for it. And it's, I mean, maybe, if that's your best guy available, okay, fine. But you didn't meet any of the needs. And even later in the draft, you didn't come back and address them. You go tight end, linebacker, guard, center, tackle, safety, defensive end. So nowhere else on offense. You're not getting them any help. Devontae Adams is probably going to be frustrated too because he's not going to be able to get open because you have no one else to catch the ball. So if Rodgers isn't going to walk, maybe Adams is going to walk.
Here's an idea. You lost Blake Martinez in free agency. You know who was still on the board when you picked was Patrick Queen, who would have been a great pickup. And then in the second round, what I put in my notes for the Packers is if I could go back, if I was their GM in that spot, I would have taken Patrick Queen. And then in that second round, I would have traded up to grab a receiver. Both the Colts and the Bengals, who took receivers in the second round right there, we're talking about wanting to trade back. I would have traded back to either take a T. Higgins or a Michael Pittman. Then you have two bona fide starters right away. You can go to Rodgers because here's the deal: your best shot at winning a Super Bowl, I hate to break it to you, is not Jordan Love. In 5 years, it's not Jordan Love. Your best shot at winning a Super Bowl is rolling with the guy who's been a top 3 quarterback for most of his career. And I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to keep your employees happy, guys who already are kind of petty, who are very easily annoyed and irritated and don't like you anyway. Maybe it's a good idea to try and make them happy. And I guarantee you taking Patrick Queen and then a Michael Pittman or a T. Higgins would have made him pretty happy. This feels like a power struggle in Green Bay. And I get that Gutekunst and LaFleur, they don't get any credit for Aaron Rodgers, right? They didn't draft him. They haven't coached him most of his career. So this is them kind of trying to put their stamp on Jordan Love's going to be our guy. We're going to build this. Jordan Love will not be Aaron Rodgers. He won't. I'll put any amount of money on that. He's not going to be. Now, you could still win a Super Bowl, but you have Aaron Rodgers with you. Why wouldn't you make him happy? Because you're going to derail this season. I don't project good things for Green Bay this year because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to take this well. Unless they start 5 or 6-0, which I don't think they will, this season for them is going to get derailed.
Yeah, and the comparison, right, is that Rodgers is the same age that Brett Favre was when the Packers drafted Aaron Rodgers, and now that they've drafted Jordan Love. But Brett Favre had his worst season career-wise the year they picked up Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers went 4-12, and then they moved on from him quickly after that. So, and sometimes, they bring in these young guys and they say, oh, it's going to be great for them to learn under, Aaron Rodgers and all that. So, dude, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm trying to win, and I'm trying to win a Super Bowl and look after myself. I think it's wrong for people to think I'm here so I can mentor this next guy. I mean, I just don't think that's how it works, and it shouldn't work that way. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Green Bay.
And if they had if they had gone 10-6 and made it to the wild card and lost or something, that is more justifiable, but that's not how it went down. And gosh, man, I don't know. Maybe we'll look back in 5 years and he's just Tom Brady and Jordan Love has just won 4 Super Bowls in 5 years and we'll look stupid, but I'm just putting my money on that's not the case.
Yeah, so I'll take our chances. We'll look stupid other ways, but not that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're probably pushing well over an hour here, but that's all right. Let's finish up. Do you have one more losing team you want to talk about?
Yeah. So you brought it up, and this is more like me Like I don't think most people agree with me, but
Yeah.
I have the Eagles.
Oh, you actually
And
did like it. Okay.
So here's why. My first is because I was such a Justin Jefferson guy, and you went Jalen Rieger, who like was played in a bad program, like underproduced because of that. Like as a receiver, you're so on your quarterback and the offense you run. I just think Justin Jefferson was the better prospect, and you can argue that he doesn't have to go in and be a number one because you have Alshon Jeffrey, you have Deshaun Jackson, but he's gonna have to because neither of those dudes can stay on the field. So by week 8, this guy's probably your number one. Like that's just history shows. And Alshon Jeffrey, if he's healthy, even is not what he was. He's old, and so. I didn't love the pick with Justin Jefferson on the board. I just didn't. I think he would have been a much more complete receiver. He's produced. He just came from a good program. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but I didn't love that pick. It felt like a reach to me for sure because I felt like this guy would have been available later. And then I didn't I didn't love the Jalen Hurts pick. I just didn't.
Yeah.
And I get the whole quarterback thing, but to me, if you want a good backup quarterback, like, fine, go get a vet. Go get a vet. Like that's what Nick Foles was. Nick Foles wasn't like, I don't know, the whole like the situation with Nick Foles leading you through the playoffs and winning a Super Bowl, like that is the exception, not the rule. Go get. Like you could have signed Teddy Bridgewater maybe, or I don't know if I'd go get Cam because that's going to cause like controversy, you know, but go trade for an Andy Dalton or go find someone. There's got to be a vet somewhere that can do the thing because here's the deal. Most teams, when your quarterback goes down, like you're done. You're done. That just kind of is what it is. I don't care how good Jalen Hurts ends up being. He's probably not going to be Carson Wentz if he hasn't been taking starter snaps all year. And so I just didn't buy into that. Like I think there are other routes to go and not in the second round. If you want to take in the 4th round, you want to take a guy, Jalen Hurts that slid to the 4th round, then like great. But a second round pick is like a guy I expect to come in and play right away. And like you said, the NFC just got better. Like the top teams didn't get worse. Most of them got better. Mm-hmm. And so the Cowboys for sure got better. And guess what? Jalen Hurts is not helping you beat the Cowboys. He's just not. He's not going to. You might have some gadget plays here and there, but he's not going to be the reason you win. You could have taken somebody who's going to make more of an impact. And I don't know. I just wasn't. I get the strategy behind it. I just personally, I just wouldn't go that route. I just wouldn't. I need guys who are going to contribute right away. And if I want to do the backup quarterback thing, I'm going to go find a vet somewhere. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's fair enough. I was a little hesitant when I first saw it. I thought it was weird. But I think what the Eagles are thinking is, we like Carson Wentz, but obviously he's injury prone. So you do want some talent there because it's not kind of just like, oh, what if a freak accident happens and Wentz goes down? What are we going to do? It's, hey, every year he's gone down. We need someone to be able to step in and make some plays for us. Also, I would think with the added team in the playoffs, if they think Hurts is going to give them an edge to just kind of get them into the playoffs or just keep their team above water to where they can get that final wild card spot, hey, if we get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're building towards that. I would say the Jalen Rieger pick is good. I know you like Jefferson better, but you were pretty kind when the 49ers got Brandon Ayuk, and you didn't have him up there all the way. And that's because you like him, you like the 49ers, you like Shanahan. I got it. But if the Eagles like Rager, if that's their guy, then the pick makes sense.
So that's fair. That's fair. I didn't even have Ayuk in the first round. The only reason is like Shanahan is a wizard, dude. Like I don't no one calls plays better than Shanahan, and Shanahan said, "This is my guy." He was so confident, like he knows how to use him. I don't know if I have as much confidence in the Eagles. Like I like Doug Peterson and he calls a good game, but they don't have like weapons on offense. Like who's their starting running back? It's going to be the guy they drafted last year, Sanders, but like he didn't take the league by storm. You still have Zach Ertz, but you don't have any other receivers. I don't know. And you're right. I mean, I'm a homer. I just have so much faith in Shanahan and what he did last year. And I just think the Eagles are relying way more on their pass game then the Niners are relying on their pass game. The Niners can run the crap out of the ball. They pick up 10 yards a carry at times. And so it's just a less pressure pick. That's
fair enough. Fair enough. All right. We've gone long on this podcast. I will quickly mention my next loser. It's tough to call him a loser, but I wanted to go kind of outside the box. Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't totally understand. Yeah, I didn't totally understand their draft. I didn't really like the Edwards-Helaire pick right there at 32. I think there were better guys on the board that fit the system a little more. I get it. Like, he's a workhorse from LSU. It's a top program. They won a championship. It makes sense. You could have gotten him in later drafts. And so that one just kind of threw me off. And I think some of their picks ultimately didn't make a lot of sense. Now, granted, they don't have a lot to work with. You're picking with the last picks. They didn't have a plethora of picks to begin with. And you just won the Super Bowl, so who really cares about this draft necessarily? Yeah. But I thought there were some better guys available that could have fit some needs and fit their model a little bit more. Now, I will probably be proven wrong because Andy Reid is a great coach, and I think it's a great program altogether, so they'll figure out a way to work with him. But I think you could have gotten some more talent with those picks that they had.
So the Edwards-Helaire pick, I see what you're saying. If the Edwards-Helaire pick looks bad, it won't be because he doesn't play well. Because in that system, and running backs generally transition so easy in the NFL, it'll be because maybe they have a need where they needed depth and a guy got hurt, and now you're looking back like, holy crap, we probably should have taken a linebacker instead, because now that's the kind of thing it'll be. Most people loved the Chiefs draft because of the Edwards-Helaire pick. Yeah. So kudos to you, man. Just sticking the finger to everybody right now, because you're like, I don't care. I like the Edwards-Helaire pick. I think the one spot was at running back. They'd had some turnover at running back. You never really knew, like in fantasy football, you never knew who to play or who you wanted. I think that brings some stability there. But I mean, time will tell.
Yeah, I think a DeAndre Swift would have been a better fit right there than Helaire. But yeah, we'll see. And I think they missed on getting some of their other needs, like interior linemen, defensive tackle. They're hurting there. But yeah, we'll see. Hey, I just wanted to go something a little out there. Hard to call them like a loser or an overall loser, but I some head-scratching picks coming out of the Chiefs there.
Sure. My last one, I didn't have him as a loser. The only reason I didn't have him as a loser is because I didn't want to sound like a homer again. But I'm just gonna tell you, Los Angeles Rams. When your team isn't that good, and your line play was terrible, and you don't have a first round pick, you need to use your picks on offensive linemen. Yeah. I'm just gonna throw that out there. That getting more skill guys probably isn't going to help you a ton when you don't have offensive linemen that are going to help. And I hope I'm not proven wrong because they're in the division. But I thought they made some head-scratching picks as well. Just a little jab there because I don't like the Rams. So
you got to get them in. I'm glad you didn't go jab against the Seahawks because we have a lot of Seahawks fans that listen.
Yeah. Well,
so just bite your tongue on that one.
we'll save the Seahawk talk for later this week when we kind of review the NFL. But they made some head scratching moves too. But
all right, there's your jab.
Yeah, there's my jab. So,
all right, fans, thanks for tuning in, sticking with us. I know this one went a little long. Always a lot to talk about after the draft, and like we said, there's not much to look forward to or talk about until we move forward with all of this. So, we pray you're all staying safe and staying healthy out there, hanging through all this pandemic stuff. We'll be here in a couple days. We'll be posting again on Thursday, doing a little state of the NFL, and then moving forward towards our predictions. We're going to jump into the AFC and NFC North, and then we'll hit a couple divisions every episode throughout the week moving forward. So thanks for sticking with us. We enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
Sir, we'll see you, Gut Check Nation.